Brigadier General Sir Walter Ramsay McNicoll KBE, CB, CMG, DSO was an Australian teacher, soldier and colonial administrator. Early life. McNicoll was born in the Melbourne suburb of Emerald Hill, the grandson of a Scottish migrant. He trained as a teacher in the Victorian Education Department and at Melbourne University. He held posts in various country schools in Victoria, then as senior master at Melbourne High School and, from 1911 to 1914, founding principal of Geelong High School. At the same time he had been active in the Victorian militia, which at the outbreak of World War I became part of the Australian Imperial Force. Parents: father, William Walter Alexander McNicoll 1852–1937, mother, Ellen McNicoll NE Acute Ramsay 10 February 1852 to 21 July 1900. His siblings were Amy Ethel Mott NE Acute McNicoll and Aunt Ruby Jessie Shippard NE Acute McNicoll. His eldest son also wrote an published a book about his maternal grandfather John Ramsay M.L.A., his namesake. Book details: John Ramsay, 1811–1867, by R. McNicoll. Circa 1960, limited to 300 editions, Melbourne, Hawthorne Press. World War I. As a lieutenant colonel, McNicoll commanded the 6th Battalion, 2nd Australian Brigade. At Gallipoli and was seriously wounded during an infantry charge in the Second Battle of Krithia on 8 May 1915. He was found on the battlefield that evening by Charles Bean, then a war correspondent, later Australia's official war historian. Bean piled discarded packs around him as protection against the still continuing small arms fire and returned in the night with a stretcher party. McNicoll was invalided to Alexandria and then to London, where a second operation finally located and removed the bullet from his abdomen. Following a year's recuperation in Melbourne, McNicoll was promoted to Brigadier General and given command of the 10th Infantry Brigade of the 3rd Division, AIF, under the divisional commander Major General John Monash. From December 1916 to the armistice nearly 2 years later, the brigade was part of numerous actions on the Western Front, including Messines, Ypres, the Somme, and Amiens. Later life. After the war, McNicoll returned to teaching as founding principal of what is now the Argyll School in Goulburn, in southern New South Wales. In 1931 he stood for and won the seat of Werriwa in the federal parliament, running as a member of the Country Party. He resigned towards the end of his first term, however, when he was appointed administrator of the mandated territory of New Guinea. He served in that position from 1934 up to the time of the Japanese invasion in 1942. The manifold responsibilities of administrator ranged from education and justice to defense, with often conflicting advice or direction coming from the Permanent Mandates Commission and the Australian government, and pressures as well from the various religious missions and commercial mining and plantation interests, the latter nearly the sole source of the territory's revenues. Keenly interested in exploration, he led an expedition to the Upper Sepik in 1935 and subsequently sponsored the Hagen Sepik Patrol, which explored the last great unknown tract of the territory. He was knighted for his work organizing relief efforts after the 1937 volcanic eruption that nearly destroyed the territory's capital, Rabaul. He was married to Hilda Marshark Weedel Jarlsberg, from a distinguished Norwegian family. They married on the 10th of June 1905, and the marriage produced 5 children, all sons. The children were 1. Ronald Ramsay McNicoll, 2. Sir Alan Weedel Ramsay McNicoll, 3. Colin Weedel Ramsay McNicoll, 4. Frederick Oscar Ramsay, McNicoll 5. David Ramsay McNicoll. They had 4 surviving children to attaining senior positions in the Australian military. A third, David McNicoll CBE, a well-known Sydney journalist. He died in Sydney.